In 2025, the Harbor Department at the Port of Los Angeles adjusted the annual lease rent for a single container terminal to $26,764,800. That is just the baseline guarantee for the concrete footprint, and it doesn't buy you a single crane, a single union dockworker, or a single gallon of fuel. For a private terminal operator, writing that multi-million-dollar check is merely the entry fee to play in a high-stakes game where a single week of labor disruption can freeze 40% of all United States imports. Most global trade relies on these concrete gateways, yet the public rarely sees the crushing operational overhead that makes owning them a stressful operational treadmill. If you buy into the dream of owning a shipping port, you probably imagine a passive toll booth collecting steady fees from shipping lines that have no choice but to use your docks. You picture massive vessels queuing up to drop off consumer goods while your bank account grows with every container lifted. The reality of the maritime logistics business is far less peaceful. It is a world of volatile freight rates, powerful unions, and capital expenditures that can easily drive an independent operator into bankruptcy. To understand how these gateways function, you must first look at the unique legal framework that governs global ports. Under the landlord port model, which is used by almost every major gateway in the world, the local government retains ownership of the waterfront land. Private operators then bid for long-term concession agreements that typically span 30 to 50 years. Companies like DP World, PSA International, and APM Terminals commit billions of dollars to build the infrastructure on top of this leased mud. They take on all the financial risk of building the docks, buying the cranes, and securing the cargo contract. The biggest barrier to entry is the initial civil engineering required to make a port usable. Modern container ships are enormous, with some carrying more than 20,000 containers at a time. To accommodate these vessels, your harbor must have a depth of at least 50 feet. If your berths are too shallow, you must pay for massive dredging operations to carve out the seabed. In 2015, Port Miami completed a deep dredge project to reach 50 feet, and the final bill reached $220 million. Half of that massive sum was paid by the local county and the state of Florida because federal funding was delayed. You must obtain permits from the Environmental Protection Agency and the Army Corps of Engineers, who test the harbor mud for heavy metals and chemical toxins. If the silt is contaminated, you cannot simply dump it in the ocean. Instead, you are forced to transport the toxic mud to specialized upland containment areas, a process that can triple your dredging costs to over $100 per cubic yard. This environmental check can delay your port expansion by years, during which your debt payments continue to accumulate. Once the water is deep enough, you must construct the quay wall where the ships will berth. You cannot build a simple concrete dock, because a terminal requires a reinforced quay wall that can support the weight of multiple 2,000-ton cranes. Building a quay wall that can withstand the constant pulling force of massive vessels can cost up to $250,000 per linear meter. A standard berth is 400 meters long, meaning you will spend $100 million just for the concrete edge where vessels tie up. Next, you must purchase the machinery to move the cargo. The giant ship-to-shore cranes that stand along the waterfront are the most important tools on the dock. A single high-performance gantry crane from the Chinese state-controlled manufacturer ZPMC costs $16 million. If you operate in the United States, import tariffs can add millions more, pushing the final cost of a single crane to over $21 million. To unload a modern container vessel in under 24 hours, you need at least 4 to 6 of these cranes working simultaneously. That means you must invest over $100 million in cranes before you even begin processing cargo. The spending does not stop at the water's edge. In the yard behind the cranes, you need a fleet of rubber-tired gantry cranes to stack the containers. These smaller cranes cost $2 million to $3 million each, and a busy terminal needs dozens of them. Many modern terminals are also investing in automated guided vehicles to move containers from the quay to the yard. Automated vehicles cost $1 million each, and they require a complex grid of transponders embedded in the concrete. To manage this mechanical orchestra, you must license a terminal operating system. Software like Navis N4 acts as the brain of the port, tracking the location of every container and directing the cranes. Licensing and integrating this software can easily cost $5 million in upfront fees. Even if you manage to build a functional port, you are instantly trapped in a continuous cycle of capital upgrades. As shipping companies build larger vessels, your existing cranes become obsolete. A terminal that was designed in 2010 cannot service the massive container ships of today because its cranes cannot reach across the wide decks of the new vessels. To buy larger cranes, you must also spend millions of dollars to strengthen the underlying quay wall so it doesn't collapse under the increased weight. You must also upgrade your electrical substation to handle the massive power demands of these new machines. This constant demand for capital means you are always reinvesting your profits back into the concrete footprint just to keep your existing clients. Once your terminal is built and equipped, the crushing weight of monthly overhead begins. The lease rent is your first major fixed cost. Trapac's monthly rent at the Port of Los Angeles Wilmington Terminal is $2,230,000. You must pay this sum even if global trade slows to a crawl and no ships call at your berths. Your second major fixed expense is labor, which is highly unionized and protective of its rules. On the United States West Coast, the International Longshore and Warehouse Union holds a complete monopoly on dock work. Under the contract ratified in 2023, registered longshoremen earn some of the highest blue-collar salaries in the world. Full-time registered longshoremen earn an average of $197,514 a year. Clerks who manage the cargo logs average $220,042. Senior foremen who supervise the crews bring home an average of $306,291 annually. A terminal operator cannot bypass this union workforce, and any attempt to introduce automation is met with intense resistance and threats of strikes. Beyond payroll and lease rent, your monthly utility bills are staggering. The electric gantry cranes consume massive amounts of power, and you must run refrigeration plugs for thousands of temperature-controlled containers. If a power grid failure shuts down your refrigeration systems, millions of dollars of agricultural cargo will spoil in hours, leaving you liable for the loss. The physical demands on the labor force also lead to high injury rates and rising insurance premiums. Workers handle heavy machinery and heavy steel containers in all weather conditions, 24 hours a day. A single crane accident can destroy millions of dollars of cargo and shut down a berth for weeks. This risk drives liability insurance premiums to over $2 million per year for a mid-sized terminal. The high reliance on technology also introduces significant risks that did not exist a few decades ago. In June 2017, the shipping giant Maersk was hit by the NotPetya cyberattack. The malware encrypted 56,000 devices across the company's network, instantly halting operations at 76 port terminals worldwide. For 2 weeks, workers at major hubs like Pier 400 in Los Angeles had to use paper logs and hand signals to manage cargo. This single cyber attack cost the company over $250 million in lost revenue and recovery costs. It demonstrated that a modern automated port is only as strong as its digital security. To recoup these massive expenses, you charge shipping lines for every container you handle. This is known as the stevedoring fee, and it typically ranges from $150 to $300 per container move. If a shipping alliance brings a vessel with 10,000 container moves to your dock, you can generate $2 million in gross revenue from a single port call. This looks highly profitable, but your margins are tied directly to speed. Ocean carriers operate on tight schedules and thin margins, and they track terminal productivity by the minute. If your crane operators cannot maintain a rate of at least 30 moves per hour, the shipping lines will relocate to a competing terminal down the coast. While container moves generate the volume, the secret profit engine of a port is a fee that cargo owners absolutely despise. It is called demurrage. When a container is unloaded, the cargo owner is given a free time window of 4 days to pick it up from the yard. If they fail to remove the container within that period, you charge them a daily storage fee. This fee increases rapidly, often starting at $100 a day and climbing to $300 a day for every container left in the yard. During the supply chain crisis of 2021 and 2022, ports became severely congested. Importers could not find enough trucks to haul their goods away, and container yards filled to capacity. As a result, terminal operators collected billions of dollars in high-margin demurrage fees from stranded retail giants. This congestion windfall generated record profits for global terminal operators, but it was a temporary distortion. When the supply chain bottlenecks cleared, the storage revenue vanished. This highlights the high volatility of the port business. In 2024, the global logistics giant DP World reported $20 billion in revenue. Its adjusted EBITDA was $5,450 million, representing a healthy margin of 27.2%. After accounting for depreciation, amortization, and interest on massive construction debt, the net profit was $1,480 million. Even during profitable years, a significant portion of your income is swallowed by interest payments on the massive loans you took out to finance your cranes and berth expansion. If your debt service coverage ratio falls below the bank's requirements, you may find your credit lines frozen right when you need them most. That is a net profit margin of only 7.4%. When you operate with a 7.4% margin, a small drop in global trade volume can wipe out your profitability. If global trade falls by 5%, your variable revenue declines, but your $26 million lease guarantee and your union payroll remain completely unchanged. The business also carries intense customer concentration risk. Shipping lines have consolidated into massive alliances to survive. If one major shipping alliance decides to move its cargo to a neighboring terminal, you can lose 30% of your volume in a single night. This is why the independent terminal operator is almost extinct. To survive the constant capital requirements and volatility, terminals have been acquired by global logistics giants, or the shipping lines themselves. Large carriers like Maersk and Costco own terminal subsidiaries to protect their vessel schedules and capture margins at both ends of the voyage. Instead of running terminals as independent profit centers, They use them as defensive assets to protect their primary shipping business. Ultimately, a container shipping port represents a complex operation rather than a simple passive toll booth. It is a high capital gamble where you lease a concrete edge, pay some of the highest blue-collar salaries in the world, and pray that a single trade dispute doesn't leave your $21 million cranes sitting silent against a concrete wall.